Buongiorno, welcome to the masterclass of Miguel Gomes for this year very particular edition of Locarno Film Festival. Miguel Gomes, you are part of the Film of the Tomorrow competition. First of all, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm fine.
Where are you speaking from?
I'm speaking from Lisbon, and I was hearing the technical lady saying, explaining to us how we would do for this, to have this talk, and she said, okay, you can leave your microphones open, and I need the microphones open because I don't want to do a monologue, so please leave it open and speak.
I promise you they will speak because we will not be alone, me and you. We have 4 filmmakers from all over the world. They have been part in the past of the Locarno Filmmakers Academy. We have one director from New York, one director from Paris, one from Karachi, and one from Taipei, but that's only where they speak from. Their identities are much more complex, and we'll get to know them one by one in a minute. I just wanted to ask you a first question, Miguel, because actually this year, everyone is impacted by the situation with the COVID-19. And when we chose you, when we wanted to speak with you, we tried to define also a main reason why we wanted to talk with you. And I defined you, I don't know if you like this definition, like the ultimate outdoor director. So when we see your movie, it's like every time we really go outside in the real world, and this interaction with reality, it's what make the strength of your movie. I mean, the very specific feeling. So traveling, meeting with the world outside, with the real world, is really part of your cinema. So my very general first question is this period for you a frustrating moment or somehow also an inspiring moment?
It's a little bit inspiring, but mostly frustrating, of course. It's not for only for me, I guess it's for all of us. But it's true that I have this feeling that when I start a project, I have this feeling of going out. So you're completely right. It's like, I mean, sometimes I can travel a lot, but even if it's only, change my neighborhood to another one, I have to go out. I'm not the kind of director that films his own reality at his own daily life. It's not, that's not me. But I'm trying to deal with this in also an artistical way as a filmmaker. I don't want to talk a lot about this, what I'm talking now, the idea of dealing with the situation by doing something. But I can say that I think I'm going to do something very, very soon.
Great.
And I have to tell you something, even if 2020, it's of course the virus year, I don't think I traveled so much as in 2020, because until half of February, from the 2nd of January till the middle of February, I made miles and miles into the Southeast Asia, working on a project. It's not the project that I have here in Locarno, it's another one. And to write this script that I finished a month ago, I had to do this, and it was 6 weeks of traveling and a little bit of shooting.
So you keep being outdoor despite everything, even though the reality surely is a little bit different out there. But let's travel a little bit around the world with the 4 filmmakers from the Filmmakers Academy that I want to have you with in conversation. First, we go to New York, where we have Shirley Bruno. Shirley, hello. Introduce yourself to the audience and Miguel, and then up to your question.
Hello, my name is Shirley Bruno. I'm a Haitian American filmmaker and I am based in New York, France, and Haiti. And I wanted, Miguel, to ask you about your sense of time, actually. And speaking of travel, I think this is a good question to maybe start with. For me, time, shifting in time in my work really affects my process and how I approach different productions, depending where I am. And I wondered, you know, as a director and your crew, you travel a lot for your films, and also within your work, we travel in your films, between countries, between neighborhoods. And I think about our beloved month of August and how we are in this specific village, and it's the busy month of August. There are transient people coming in and out of that space, and the film meanders and it fragments. And I also think about Taboo, and you have these two parts, and to Taboo, and there is a shifting in time. We go from Lisbon in the first part and being more indoors, to Africa in the second part, being outdoors in open spaces, and we don't have dialogue. And all of this, to me, I felt the lull, the shift in time and space in not having dialogue, into a more nostalgic sense of time. And so I wondered, how do you shape time in your films? How does the traveling actually, does it affect your process? And if you can speak about that.
Gee, Shirley, that's lots of questions, no? That's good to make lots of questions. It's if we have the opportunity, it's better to do more than one thing than just one. Yeah, you know, I think I'm not so conscious about my work while I'm doing it. At least while I'm start to think about the project. For instance, Taboo. Taboo. Uh, when I arrived to the end of the process, when I had the film ready, I start to give interviews, start to talk about the film, and I said then, okay, this film, it has a very strong connection with time. Time is central in this film. Um, you have two parts, like you said, and in the first part you see some characters in old age, in nowadays, and then you go back to another time and you see these characters, but they are like mutant characters, because when you arrive to the youth, uh, when the characters are young, you have seen them old or about to die or dying. So it makes something to the viewer, no? It transforms these characters, because when we arrive to the earlier moment in his life, we have seen this posterior moment, but of course in cinema we can deal with time in another way. So we can uh, start with the future and go into the past or the present. And so I, I was not so conscious about this, but I guess we have always an intuition of things, but would not be like so clear in my mind like when I made the film. Um, so this question of time is very important. You talked also about our beloved month of August. Our beloved month of August also had two parts, but in that case, the fact that there are two parts, it was really an accident, because the film was not intended that way, you know, because we had a script, and this script had to do with what we see in the film, with that kind of universe and songs and village and music. But in fact, what happened is that there was no, the director talking with the sound man and trying to cast people to enter the film. This was not on the script. This happened because of an accident. This maybe Our Beloved Month of August is the most important film for me in my, maybe it's a personal affective thing, but I don't know, but it was very important for me, this film, because it released me from lots of things, from prefixed structures. So there was this accident, which is a very common accident in cinema, which is not having enough money to do the film. And then after this accident, the producer asked me, he said, okay, let's postpone the film for 1 more year and try to get money for making the film. And then I thought it better, and I said, no, let's do something else. Let's start to do the film, because we are almost in summer. So these villages start to be full of people, and these bands will start to perform. So let's grab these things, because they are already in the script, and then let's reinvent the script. Let's edit what is material, and then let's try to readjust the script and organize the editing, the things I'm going to shoot there afterwards, you know. And this was a crucial thing for me and for my cinema. This moment, this decision was the most important decision I took in my life. Not my life, in my cinema. And there's also one thing which this is why I like maybe so much Our Beloved Month of August, is that I think you can feel, or maybe I'm wrong, but anyway, I experienced this, like a joy of making a film and asking people to enter the film and playing in the film. And this kind of joy, we live this during the shooting. So the film, it's also about the happiness of being able to do a film, which is a very underestimated subject for cinema. I mean, the joy of filming, for me, it's essential on the cinema I like. And so, of course, this was connected with the fact that we almost did make the film, and then we invented a way, maybe more free, liberated from, the script and everything, to trying to construct the film while filming it. And this was this brings happiness. It also brings a little bit of headaches, but also brings happiness. And I think in the middle of the process, I was thinking what's good about this. Maybe not everything is good, but what's good is trying to capture our happiness for being here making this film. I didn't answer much about time, but I'll compensate later, okay? When someone, normally I don't answer the questions that people make me. It's not a problem of who makes me the questions. It's my Portuguese mind works like this. Okay.
Well, we have enough time to get to the answer during all the conversation. We fly now across the ocean, and we arrive in Europe, in Paris, where we have Philbert and Mbabazi. Philbert, please introduce yourself.
Thank you. My name is Philbert Mbabazi, and I'm a film director from Rwanda and partly based in Switzerland. So I've been watching your work. I like a lot Our Beloved Month of August. And I wanted to ask that like beyond including the process of casting in the film and the people being involved, you also include yourself and the crew. And this is, I wanted to know just about these moments where you choose this and why you choose this, because it switches the film completely, I guess.
Yeah, in fact, the moment where we thought about filming the crew and even myself was when I understood that if we were asking people from these villages, from uh, this region to enter the film, they were not professional actors. They were people that were there because they lived there, they were born there, and I thought it was fair to also put the ones that come from the exterior. That was us, and shoot everything. I mean, shoot everyone from the crew. Uh, Even the camera enters in the film. So everything we brought from the exterior should also participate in this in the film because it was also a part of it, you know. So I think it was fair to do this, to ask people to play the film, and then would be fair to ask the crew and myself to also play in the film. So it's a kind of a matter of justice, and and there was a moment when, after filming some weeks, the word spread out that there was this crew of cinema making a film in the villages. There's lots of villages there, and so we start to have the, you know, to have some people saying, phoning us and saying, "Why don't you come to our party in the village?" So we understood that we were really part of this summer. You know, there was people dancing, the parties, as you see in the film, the, the balls, and there was us making a film about this. So this should not be hidden. It must be in the film. This is why we decided to do this. And also, of course, there are moments where everything fails. You know, we think, okay, next Tuesday, let's shoot in this village, and then let's go to the river, and then everything fails. When everything fails, and I don't have nothing, you have to find a solution. So what I have here, the myself and the camera, it's the crew. So I'll shoot them.
Philibert, because when we select the filmmakers to be in conversation with you, we wanted people who really love and know your cinema, and some who know a little bit but are discovering, are interested, you know, all kinds of approaches. But what you told me, Philibert, on how you used Miguel Gomes movies in Rwanda, I think is worth telling Miguel.
Yeah, actually, yeah, it's I did my film studies at Laed in Geneva. I think you've been there as a
Yeah.
tutor at some point. So I was struggling so much in the beginning, and I couldn't make a film I wanted to do. I couldn't get people to be part of it. People didn't want to be filmed, and I was only left with myself because I was very new there, like just a few weeks. And when I saw our beloved month of August, and I saw you in it, and you didn't need to perform or to play, it gave me the courage to start my film just with myself and the sound, because people don't want to be filmed. So I went around with sound, and people are easier with sound, and then they open up. And at one point, I started also to film. And then in the process, I became less of a character, and I met people who wanted to be part of the film. And actually, I thought like this film, Our Beloved Month of August, really helped me settle in my school, because I was struggling so much in the beginning, and this saved my ear, and the film ended up being successful. And this is like my connection to Our Beloved Month of August and your work.
You're my cousin. And this was made where? Where did you shoot?
I shot in Geneva, in a neighborhood called Le Paquis.
Yeah, I now I understand why it was Le Paqui is where? It's. Can you explain me where it is Le Paqui?
Le Paqui is the quarter between the Gare, Cornavin, and the lake. So there is the red light district in there. There is many bars and hotels, and there is luxurious hotels. So it's like a place which really has everything, and like more than 180 nationalities in just like 5 streets. So I was shooting in a Congolese grocery. Yeah, grocery store.
Yeah. Philbert,
Good option. Good option. Making a film like
Thanks.
this.
Okay, we move further down east and we reach Karachi and Hamza Bangash. Hamza.
Hi, Miguel. I'm a Pakistani-Canadian director based out of Karachi. And I got to actually discover your cinema through this masterclass. And it's really been a window for me also into kind of Portuguese culture, which is not something that I'm very familiar with. I thought your beloved month of August was so beautiful. And I'm like, I want to make this film now for Pakistan, because we have a month like that also, where it really feels like the country becomes alive. But I wanted to ask a little bit about, because in August, I felt a real connection between the camera and the local inhabitants. And you spoke a little bit about that as well, about your own experiences, kind of, you know, falling in love with the villagers in the process. And then I felt a lot more distance between the inhabitants in Taboo, especially when you were in Mozambique. And I felt comparatively, when you're looking at your approach with the local inhabitants over there, they're at a much greater distance. So I wanted to ask to somebody who has the, you know, the ability and the privilege to be a filmmaker, and also a filmmaker who can travel to other countries to explore cinema, kind of what do you feel is your responsibility as a filmmaker to the local inhabitants of the place that you're filming? Because from the works of yours I've seen quite different approaches. So I'd love for you to comment on that. And yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, it's different films. So in this question that the distance, to be distant or close to the characters, I mean, I think I'm never that distant to my characters or something like this. But anyhow, I think sometimes I would say for young filmmakers that are very generous, normally, they should be a little bit suspicious of this proximity thing, because, you know, for instance, this guy in August, the guy that jumps from the bridge, I don't know if you remember this guy. He was an alcoholic, and he was like the, you know, the village fool a little bit, but he was a kind of mythical character of this. And I was always loving to film with him, and what was complicated was trying to decide what I would accept from him and what I would try to stop him. Okay, say no, these I'm not interested to do. So this kind of proximity is like having a real relationship with someone. Making a film with him, you have to accept things that he has to give you, and you also have to make him do things that you want for the film. And this is always like a negotiation. And the good distance is what happens during this negotiation. If you negotiate wrong, you have the bad distance. The taboo, I wouldn't call distance. I mean, the natives in the Africans in the film are excluded almost from the film, from taboo. And this was a choice. And because I think that the film is dealing with this colonial issue in that way. I mean, the fact that the people that live, the Africans, they you don't see them in the film. You just see this, these two guys in love and all this white man story. It's something that it's a way of talk about someone that is silenced. I mean, in my perspective, I think for me it's essential to do ambiguous films that have to count with the viewer. So as the viewer have different sensibilities and different perspectives and different interests, they will look to every film in different ways, unless the film is like a small, dictator saying to you, no, you have to think this way now, and I don't like the films to do this to me as a viewer. So I try not to do this as a film director. And so I think that the absence of Africans in the film is a central issue of taboo. There is something wrong. I mean, there are two, mainly a woman and a man living, like a Hollywood love story, and I think they are completely unaware of what is surrounding them. And for me, but maybe this is not so visible for every viewer is different, and this was my intention. But for me, this absence is crucial for what is taboo. And of course, also the character of the maid in the first half of the film, everything, all these elements are essential. And so I guess even if I'm not saying that the love story in Taboo is ironical, but it's also ironical. Sometimes you can have two very different things working at the same time. And when you have two very different things working at the same time, then you start to have cinema. Maybe. If it's only one, it's my theory of the piles, no? It's of the batteries. Now you have to have negative and positive, and then you have charge, electricity. And cinema is a little bit like batteries. So you must have opposites.
By the way, I jumped to that because the reason I thought about Hamza, when I thought to put filmmakers in relation with you, Miguel, there is a scene in one of his shorts called Stray Dogs Come Out at Night, which is kind of a sad story, sad social story. There are two men who are protagonists of this story, but suddenly there's a moment where they go to the beach and they sit on the beach and they see a camel passing by and someone who rents, for rides on the camel. And it's, in this moment, it's totally inappropriate to go for a ride on a camel, but this happens. And this moment brings everything so much alive. So this strange balance between drama and humor, which I think is absolutely, I wanted to say in the beginning how much I enjoy your movie. Then I thought, oh my God, is it appropriate to say I enjoy your movie? Because actually...
Of course it's appropriate.
Yes. But I mean, if you think of what's, for example, for Arabian Nights, I mean, when you think of what are the topics that you're talking about and what you're showing about the specific situation, I would say, yes, Portugal, but I would say Europe, in one way, it's not funny at all. I mean, it's like the premises are not funny. But then there are these elements that really brings out all the contradiction, the complexity of it.
Yeah, this drama and the camel appearing, it's the good example of the battery theory, negative and positive at the same time, because this opens a space for the viewer. It's just not when your experience, drama, you're at in this point, and then you go to this point, and then you have the space between these 2 points. And so the viewer, there is one a guy sitting next to you that is still crying, and one and yourself, you're starting to smile and even to laugh. I don't know. This is yeah, it makes the cinema not like the life, because cinema is not life, but with a nice aspect of life, which is this kind of diversity, not just one note, um, but lots of them at the same time. This brings richness, I think.
Let me introduce you the fourth filmmaker who is with us. She's way, way down east in Taipei, Rina Tsou. Welcome, Rina.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Miguel.
Hello.
This is also my first time watching your films, and I watched them in various places, in hospital rooms, in my home, on the bus, and each time I end up laughing and scaring the people beside me. So I guess I have three questions that really I felt curious about. I was born in the Philippines, but I grew up in Taiwan. So I basically traveled from countries and also cultures. And in your films, I really felt that kind of connection too, especially to the people that you approached and to the narratives that you tried and experimented with. So I was wondering, my first question would be, throughout your life or your career, do you find yourself also traveling with different kinds of storytellings? And you said that after shooting August, you feel freed of the prefix. And do you now have a more um, flowing way of creation? For example, how much of your latter films are scripted? And for example, in Arabian Nights, when you decided to run out, was that improvisation? And how did your crew work with that? And my most the most question that I felt really connected to is when you shot Arabian Nights, you expressed your frustration as a creator, as a director. This is something that I feel very dearly right now, because I feel like when I want to shoot something that is connected to social issues that is happening right now, I also feel this kind of frustration as to how to make a good film, but also how to make a film that has impact. So maybe these questions, I was hoping you could give me some points.
Okay. About the last one, when you're talking about this frustration, it's in, and the Arabian Nights, it was in the sense of, for instance, being angry with some situation, like I was a little bit during these times of crisis in Portugal and making a film, or you were talking about the, because then you said the impact on the to make films that have impact on the viewer. So I wanted to understand if you were asking me to precise a little bit better. Sorry, I didn't understood.
I think it's both, because when you want to make a film that really connects to what is happening in the world right now, you want it to have some kind of power, at least for me. But at the same time, you also have artistic choices and creative choices, and sometimes I just get in the mix of it and feel a little bit um, out of direction. So I guess the frustration is a little bit of both.
Hmm. Well, you know, I think that I cannot do otherwise. When I'm making a film, I mean, it's always a different film. And during a film, it continues to change. There's lots of things. But I never think about what kind of impact it will have, like industry in an industrial view, you know, because I have the sensation, I have almost sure that when I make a film like Arabian Nights, I mean, I hope it can be seen and to be seen in different parts of the world by many people as possible. but I have no illusions that I cannot change, that I don't have the power to change the things because the film, the film itself, but even in I mean in this area of cinema, art house cinema, even if it's it like Taboo, it had more audience than people expected in the beginning. I don't do this. I don't think we are able to change things. We don't have that power. Cinema today doesn't have that power. There are many reasons, but is it not good enough to influence someone? Maybe 3 guys, maybe a little bit more. Who knows? But yeah, to change things. For instance, this film was dealing with the politics that Portugal and Europe were taking doing at that moment in our country. And I would not expect to have like a riot in the streets. It doesn't. I would never reach. I'm not sure if I would like to. It's kind of scary, but yeah. But even if it's maybe more important than my own political ideas and my thoughts about the world that are not so much complex and interesting, I guess, is trying to make films that allow people to think in a more free way, not with so many commonplaces in the head and so, in a prison of mainstream society. People must think for their own heads, and cinema in that chapter I think that I can do something, but to try to influence the others, I don't have I have doubts all the time, about things. I can it's in one of a very good film by Nicholas Ray. There is a character that says, "I always contradict myself," which is a very nice sentence. And well, I always contradict myself, so I don't have this kind of idea that I can say to people, do this way, think this way, but I can do films where I can show things to the people, and maybe they can have a little bit freedom inside the film to think for their own heads. This is already something good for me, and it's not so. It's not guaranteed for people. I mean, it's not the freedom of thought. It's not so something that you have like for sure. You have to work a little bit to provide this. Was only your last question. I write and I don't understand my own writing. So before we're talking about traveling, and there's something I cannot read.
The funny parts in your films, are those improvised, and how does your crew collaborate with that?
Well, they were taught to. They are now. They are used to do this. It comes with a contract when the crew arrives. That now they expect. I think they are angry with me, saying, "You don't like me? Why don't you shoot me?" But of course, from the beginning, when making films, I was interested with, to have the spaces that usually are hidden in cinema when you're making a fiction. And you have to believe, to try to make a real, to make credible the characters and the story. You have to hide lots of things, and cinema is about this normally in normal cinema. But I do not so normal cinema, and I also think, but it's not only me, and it is being made. I didn't invent nothing. It's made for decades and decades. Along all the story of cinema, in truth, to be honest, to have other, behind the camera is also can be so interesting as. And as what you see in front of the camera, so you can turn 180 degrees the camera, and maybe it can still be interesting or even more interesting. And of course, what you see, it's not more true than what you see. What you see behind the scenes, maybe it's not more true than what you see with the characters. So. And then the things start to be more fun. Even.
So do you write them beforehand in the script, or do you decide on set?
I decide normally the day before, but it depends. It depends. The case of Arabian Nights, when I'm running from the film, it was decided, I think, in the morning. And then I got before lunch. But this was one of the situations, as I told you, where something failed. We had something to shoot, and it was not possible. So we were there in the hotel, and I start to think about this scene. And I proposed this scene to the crew, and they said, "Okay, let's do it."
Miguel, we've introduced now all the four filmmakers. And by the way, I tell to the viewers, if they want to know more about these four young filmmakers, on the pages of Locarno website, there is one page dedicated to each one of them with one of their short and original text about their relation with their changing culture, their complex culture identity. That was the first part, like in a good Miguel Gomes movie, the first part called socialism. So everyone has its turn to speak. Now we enter the second part, which is Darwinism. Now let's see how that works out on a Zoom conversation. So everyone is free to come forward and ask the question, who grabs the microphone first.
Okay, more beverage, I like it.
I have a question. So it seems you work with a small crew most of the time, and it's regular people you work with, but especially with the sound man, it seems that it's a special relationship. I saw like in this scene in Arabian Night, the scene of the trial with the crew. You're not together with the whole crew, not the DP, not everyone, but you're with the sound person. Yeah, so I wanted just to know more about how you work with the sound person and how you deal with sound, especially in your films, and what does he bring especially?
Well, he brings craziness mainly, and is also someone that really loves sound. Is so in love with sound that he fights to have the best sound, which is not so common in the sound engineers that at least from my experience, some of them, because in cinema, image has sometimes too much power, and because the crew of image is bigger than the sound, and so normally sometimes you have this guy more shy that knows that he's very limited because it's just one or two, him and the Pershman, the boom guy, and then they have lots of guys in the image, and so they just let be quiet and not create many problems. And this guy is a savage. He has some mental problems that don't put him in a situation that he's not able to do his work. He can do his work, and he thinks that he can do better his work if with making creating problems sometimes and fighting for the sound, really fighting for the sound, because but it's like a passional thing, you know. He acts this way because he has mental problems, and but he has a deep real love for what he does, and he believes that he can transform the films by doing his work properly. Sometimes what he thinks that he must do to do it properly clash with the rest of the world, and sometimes we have some problems. Of course, I'm fascinated with a character like this. In this, he made Vasco. Now he has 60 years. He worked a lot with. He began very early when he was young, and he worked for many important directors. He had a special relation with Raul Ruiz from Chile that shot in the 80s in Portugal, 2 or 3 films or more. And he was very attached to this guy, to Vasco. And of course, Vasco shot with the best filmmakers in Portugal, Oliveira and Monteiro, and but also other uh, directors. And everyone is kind of fascinated by this guy because he's so talented and he's so crazy and he fights so much to have the things done properly, that this portrait of in the end of our beloved month of August, of our discussion, the discussion between our characters, the sound guy and the director, when he says, okay, I accuse him, the director accuses him to be recording sounds that doesn't exist on the earth, on the reality, but it's him that projects from his mind. And because cinema is about desire, it's about uh, putting the things we love into the films. This is Vasco too, and it's his philosophy. And of course, you must have a special relationship with someone like this. It's even if sometimes we got very angry with each other, but it's a love relationship.
Go ahead. Remember, you are in Darwinistic mode right now.
So I have a
Sure.
question. Yes. Yes. So, well, I wanted to mention something I read about you once, or something you mentioned in an interview, I think, where you said you think that cinema has provided us with the memory of things that have happened, but also the memory of things that have not yet happened. And it really touched me when I read that, and I related to it a lot. And I think it's because for me, cinema, it's about collecting things that I remember, places I remember, but have not yet been to. That's something that I have found in my work, and also a way of collecting other people's memories. And I think about our beloved month of August and this lovely scene when you are playing a version of yourself and talking to a producer, and he's saying, "So will you get actors?" And you say, "No, only real people." And which I loved and relate to very much in my work also. And I wonder if you working with real people, is it connected to this, this need for looking at collective memory or memory in general? Is that a part of it? If you could speak about working with real people versus actors and what that means for you.
I work with both. I work with professional actors and work with non-actors that, since they are acting, they became actors, not professionally, but they are acting in the film. Yeah, this idea of having, you know, the fake memories that I think I said that about, because in taboo, because people ask me about Africa and my connection with Africa, and I had these people saying it was exactly like this, you know, Mozambique, it was like exactly like this, and I said it's very strange because I've never been there, and maybe it was not like this, but it's the idea that people have, because it was one of these false memories. These ideas we create and start to be as true as the rest, as the live the experience by yourself. But because we live in a world of things we do and people we met and things we see, but we are living also in a world of myths. And since the beginning, we fabricated myths, and we take these myths as seriously as the rest, you know? So this mythical Africa, I thought it would be a very false one, an Africa that cinema created or literature created, and but we take it as something that it's not false, even if it's completely false. And yeah, there is this kind of shared culture, and yeah, this interests me a lot to work with this, both with things that we lived through. So it's things that, for instance, Taboo is based, this character, at all the characters in the first part, they came from my life. They came from what I knew from an aunt of mine, and what was happening in her building. And but the Africa comes from culture, with all it has of beauty and ugliness. I took it for Taboo.
I wanted to ask about narration. Um, um, Probably continuing to the question that Philbert has before, how much of yourself do you decide to be involved in the film, and what is when is the time that you decide that thing? Because you said that sometimes you have improvisation during the film. Um, how do you decide how much of yourself you want to put in a certain piece?
Myself, my person, or my universe appearing in the film directly, or doing a
Appearing
personal.
appearing in the film directly.
Yeah. I don't know. As I said, this is a little bit. I think it's a little bit overrated, my appearances in the film, in the films. But as I said, it happens a little bit by accident, because things didn't happen as planned. Every time it happened, it was a little bit by accident. There's also something that that bothers me sometimes in cinema. Is like sometimes I have the sensation that the films are a little bit authoritarian to the viewer. As I said, this is a very central issue to me. Create spaces of freedom for the viewer. I don't want him to be, you know, a prisoner of a film or be commanded like a puppet from a film. And and so there are several films. I will not give examples, but for me there are several films that impose too much to the viewer. They are too much imposing for the viewer. It's not the viewer that accepts to take them and to do something with them. It's them that are too eager to act on you. And this is like a holdup. And I don't like it. And so when I appear in the film, in my films, I think I'm like a poor. It's not very impressive, my appearance, in my opinion. So uh, uh, maybe it's also to desacralize this figure of the author and the director. So I think I'm a little bit like sometimes a jester in my films, but I can, for instance, what I'm saying in the beginning of Arabian Nights, the fact that the difficulty of making a film about, like in the spirit of Arabian Nights, of, you know, wonderful storytelling with lots of exotical things to happen, and also made a film about our moment in society, what is happening in my country, what's happening socially. It's a difficult combination, and the fact that I decided to put myself running away in the film was happened, as I said, in the morning, but it was not planned. But I think it was important to give the rules of the game of Arabian Nights in the beginning. And so in the beginning, uh, this first minutes of the film, I think they have, I mean, the problem of the film, the space, it defines the space, it defines rules of the game. That then the viewer will participate in this in the process, and so I think it was this, but I don't know when I decided to appear and run away if I was already thinking about this, or I think it came later on when I said, okay, now I did this shot, so what now? You have to create the film during the shooting and start to rearrange all the process from that. This is the work you can do when you start to improvise, and then of course in the editing you take the final decisions. And I can I think when I run away I was already thinking, okay, let's have voice over of, I mean, meet the workers there in the shipyard, and so I was, and the guy from that kills the wasps. So I was trying to have this choral thing, and this, I don't know, maybe it was the day after of running away scene. I thought about this, and then you can write the voiceover in the editing, so you're still writing even if you're in the end of the process doing the editing. So it's like very organical things that it's not so defined. There is not the moment where you see the light and then everything is clear. It's more chaotic. But now I have to add that because sometimes people, younger directors like you, are very thrilled with the fact that you say, okay, this guy just improvises. It's not no boring screen being closed to writing screen plays for months and months. And okay, it's not this. So improvisation can bring you to very interesting places. Losing control, which is something that I really care. Losing control is very interesting, but you have to gain it control again at some moment of the process. And so it's not something that brings you to a good end necessarily, okay? And for instance, in the film that I have here, the script, the film that is participating here in Locarno, the Brazilian film, we wrote, it's from a book, it's an adaptation of a book, and we worked on this screenplay for 2 years. And we were 4, so I can write, you know, and I write, and I do it. Then, so every film is different. Every film is different. I would say that that script, after 2 years of script, I cannot write no more. Now I have to shoot. But the scenes are constructed in a way that they can be very different, you know? I mean, you don't have closed dialogues, for instance. You don't have, this is not defined. There is a moment where you're facing the people that are going to play in the scene, and then you have to get the scene from them. And that's not about now the script and the paper, the things you thought, because you're facing a new reality. It's a different day than the first time you thought about this idea. So everything is different. You change, you have different people that can bring you something that you never thought about before. So you have to take it. But to create, I mean, to do the structure of this thing, I have to meet a lot of people in Brazil, and that could play in the film. They are non-professional actors. So this, in this case, I want a whole population of a small city to play in this film. And so I have to spend lots of time there and to talk with many people and to get ideas from what I was feeling from them, from this proximity relationship, and also working in this book, which is a very, very structured book. So it can, and I want to be faithful not to the what's written exactly, but to the architecture of the book. And so we spent 2 years trying to get this right. So it's not only wake up and say, okay, I'm going to run away, just shoot me. This is one day, but they have lots of different days doing other different things.
I could ask something that's related to that, perhaps. I'm just curious about hearing your structured, non-structure of working and writing, and then desecrating your writing with improvisation and restructuring. How did you negotiate that with crew and producers and even funding? Obviously now in your career, it's different, but I wonder how you started. How was that? Was it difficult? How did you negotiate that relationship and let everyone be okay with you losing control and getting it back?
You have to do one time right, and because if you just start by this, they will not give you any credit, no, like you said. But I think the producers, they are you have to understand that in Portugal, our market is very little. You know, there is not much opportunity to make money internally with our cinema, and so these production or these producers that have to, you know, that are very worried with the, you know, the mainstream formula of making mainstream cinema does not exist because of economical reasons in Portugal. It's only because of that, because we are poor, we have not so much opportunities to make real money with the films, we can afford this kind of freedom. So with this context, I think it's easier to understand in Portugal how this can work. So in my case, and in other cases of other Portuguese directors that that made films and had the opportunity to show them, to have an international presence outside the country, these films were made with this kind of freedom. So what made them, what made the films be successful was this kind of approach. So I think this is the advantage of living in a small country with a small. We don't have any industry. It's not industry. We don't have conditions to make it. So you can do this in. I'm not sure if it will last forever, but you can still do this, and we have done this. For instance, in Philippines, I think in Philippines it's different because we have also a huge market. But so forget what I was saying. But in Portugal, you can do it, and of course, since you don't put in stake the money of the producer, so if I do Michael Cimino thing, I love Heaven's Gate. It's one of the more unfair things in the history of cinema. But if I do Michael Cimino, I mean, or Francis Coppola in Apocalypse Now, I'll be in trouble. I cannot do it because I don't control the credit card of the producer. So I would have to steal from him. And so he controls it. He knows how many weeks it's going to last. And if what I do inside this time with that money, he trusts me. Because he thinks, okay, it went more or less well when he was doing this before. Maybe there will be a day it will be very bad for us, but what else can I do? I have to trust him. And these relations of trust are real precious things to have, if possible, with the producer.
Miguel, I just received a phone call from the producer of the masterclass saying the money is over, and that. But I told him I have a very good idea, and he said, "Okay, you can have 5 minutes more."
Okay.
So anyone here now come up with a good question to justify this to the producer? Hamza.
I hope it's a good question. There's a lot of pressure there. But I had a question that a lot of young filmmakers get these days, especially in the context of how cinema is changing, is about when we're choosing to create stories, our own identities are constantly on the line, and they're asking, why are you the right person to tell that story? And I'm sure this is a question you've gotten as you've been storytelling as well. And especially when you're telling stories in cultures that are different from yours, as you mentioned, your new project is in Southeast Asia. How do you answer that question?
They're in Brazil. They're in Brazil too.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Well, I think one of the beautiful things in the world is to share things. I think that no one has the copyright for nothing. what I think is that you should be honest with yourself and try to do films, personal films that really interested you without thinking about how it will make money and other. I think this is the essential thing. You must do films that for with things you love. In the case of for instance, Brazil, this comes from a book that I really love. Uh, I love the vision he has, and I want to have a dialogue with this vision. And the film proposes that, and it's my opinion is really that no one should think that he can put in the place of the other and you know pretend to be the other. This doesn't work. But also, I don't think no one has the copyright of nothing. And I think that I don't know. I have this idea that um, belonging and belonging to a very homogeneous group is a good thing, and we can keep up the dialogue and not just everyone closes himself in a small house and going to the window and shouting that the others are not nice people. Um,
Miguel,
Can I have one last question?
that's only
please?
because it's you, Rina.
Yeah, when Hamza said something about young filmmakers' concerns, I have something I really want to ask. In this time, especially now, um, does the medium of films, um, for example, online viewing or not being able to go to theaters, does that affect your way of creation? Do you think about how films are perceived in a smaller screen or in a lesser, in a, how do you say it, in a lesser quality of sound? Do you think about that when you do films now? For example, do you think about what would you change if you do something for Netflix, or what would you change if you do something for internet?
Hell no. Hell no. I would not think that if my film would be screened in a poor medium than theater, I would have to make a weaker sound or a weaker image, no, I don't think about this, and I don't think about this.
Miguel,
Don't you think about this too? Don't you do it too? Don't think about doing iPhone cinema. Unless you want to really do iPhone cinema. The good reason to do iPhone cinema is because you're really interested in putting the film inside the iPhone, not just because I don't have any choice.
Miguel, thank you very much. I think we all have lots of questions left out. I would have asked you about anti-modernism, about your inspiration through books, because your dialogue and your narration is so excellent. And I wanted to ask you if your movies were Beatles album, to which Beatles album they would correspond, and all this kind of fantasy. But what I'm saying is basically is
Lonely Heart.
Sorry?
It's the Lonely Heart Club.
Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club.
Sgt. Peppers, yeah. Everyone from Sgt. Peppers.
To me, a lovely, beloved month of August is Rubber Soul, and then Taboo is Revolver. I think Arabian Night is the White Album, and probably you are working on Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, but it's just a point of view. But what we really want to say to you And we really want to thank you because we are in a category called Films After Tomorrow. And the first condition for films being there after tomorrow is really the need, the will, the passion of making them. And that's what your cinema conveys to all of us. So thanks for that. So thank you everyone for participating. I'd like to say thank you very much to Shirley in New York. Ciao, Shirley. I'd like to say ciao to Rina in Taipei. I'd like to say ciao to Philbert in Paris, in Switzerland. I'd like to say bye to Hamza in Karachi. And of course, I'd like to say thank you to Miguel, muito obrigado in Lisboa. And all the best to your project and good life to everyone. Arrivederci.